Hello everyone, I hope you're having a great day today. So last time we started off by looking at how the heart plays an important role in the human body. Today we'll look at the anatomy of the heart, and by this I mean the different parts of the heart. Trust me, this will be fun. So the heart at its core is a pump, right? So let's explore how the blood is pumped through the structure from start to finish. Before we get started, let me just remind you that the areas shaded blue, such as these, are associated with deoxygenated blood. This means that the blood does not have a high concentration of oxygen. However, the areas shaded red are associated with oxygenated blood. This means that the blood contains a high concentration of oxygen. Our journey begins with these two veins, veins. This means that they bring blood to the heart, So the top vein is called the superior vena cava. Let me just write that down. The superior vena cava. And the one on the bottom is called the inferior vena cava. The inferior vena cava. This, however, does not mean that the superior vena cava is more superior to the inferior vena cava. No, it doesn't mean that. It means that the superior vena cava brings in deoxygenated blood from the top half of your body, so that's the brain and the arms, while the inferior vena cava brings in deoxygenated blood from the bottom half of your body, so that's your legs and your belly. So the deoxygenated blood from both the vena cavas end up in a chamber of the heart known as the right atrium. The right atrium. Next, the blood makes its way into the right ventricle. The right ventricle. But in doing so, it has to pass through a valve. So what is a valve? Well, a valve is a little mechanism really that is present to prevent the backward flow of blood. So in this case, the tricuspid valve, that's what it's called, the tricuspid valve. Let me just write that down. The tricuspid valve. So what this tricuspid valve does is it prevents the blood flowing from the right ventricle into the right atrium. But how do valves do this? Well, valves are essentially flaps which move up and down and keep blood moving in one particular direction. So let's go back to our drawing of the heart. So what the tricuspid valve is doing here is it's flipping up and down and preventing the blood from the right ventricle flowing back into the right atrium. So the blood passes through both vena cavas, into the right atrium, through the tricuspid valve, and into the right ventricle. Where to next? Well, we see yet another pair of valves. This time, it's called the pulmonary valve. The pulmonary valve. And this actually gives us a clue to what we'll see next. Because pulmonary is a word associated with the lungs, right? So a good guess to what we'll see next are the lungs. But before it gets to the lungs, the blood has to pass through an artery. The pulmonary artery. pulmonary, because this time it's going to the lungs. Pulmonary artery. And don't get confused into thinking that this is a vein just because it's shaded blue. No, arteries carry blood away from the heart, and this artery is carrying blood away from the heart into the lungs. I'm actually going to draw the lungs so that's easier for you to visualize where they sit relative to the heart. And the lungs are really important because this is where gas exchange happens. And remember that this blood is deoxygenated at the moment. But the oxygen we inhale, the oxygen we breathe, is diffused into this blood through gas exchange. So by the time it's here, it's oxygenated again and it's ready for another trip around the body. So let me just write that down. So oxygen diffuses into the bloodstream. But remember, there are waste products such as carbon dioxide which need to be removed. And this is the perfect place for that to happen. So carbon dioxide is removed and is then expelled from the body. Also note that this is not an accurate representation of a blood vessel inside a lung. The blood vessels actually branch off into other areas of the lungs so that there's a higher surface area for gas exchange. So the freshly oxygenated blood makes its way into the pulmonary vein. And it's a vein because it's bringing blood to the heart. Pulmonary vein. So it's bringing oxygenated blood to the heart and into the left atrium, the third chamber of the heart. And now we meet another valve, and this time it's called the mitral valve. The mitral valve. And what the mitral valve does is it pumps the blood into the left ventricle. The left ventricle. And this is actually the strongest chamber of the heart, in fact. And the left ventricle pumps the oxygen-rich blood into the aorta. And before it does that, the blood passes through another set of valves. And it's called the aortic valves. The aortic valve. And this gives us a clue to what we'll see next, and it's the aorta. The supermassive artery that flows into all the other areas of the blood. And the cycle continues again, so the arteries turn into vein, and the veins flow into the vena cavas, through the right atrium, etc. That's all from me today. I hope you liked my video. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. Bye for now.